And take a live look at Atlanta, Georgia, where President Biden and former President Trump will square off in the CNN presidential debate that you'll see right here on Fox.
Both campaigns are making an 11th hour push to sway the voters.
Right. Bill Melugin knows all about it. He's live on the campus of Georgia Tech, near where tonight's debate will be. Bill, we pulled you off the border for a good reason. And this is one of those good reasons. Big debate, early June debate. Your thoughts?
Well, Brian, it's the first time since 2020 that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are going to come face-to-face with each other. We don't even know if they're going to shake each other's hands tonight, but Democrats are already trying to get under Donald Trump's skin. Take a look at this video right here. The DNC paid money to buy out 5 of these billboards here in the Atlanta area, putting up near highways out here, going after Trump for his recent felony conviction. It says, quote, "Donald, welcome to Atlanta for the first time since becoming a convicted felon. Congrats," or whatever. Well, a conservative nonprofit group is now hitting back at Biden in his campaign. They're going after him about his border policies and a recent slew of high-profile migrant crimes. Take a listen.
He was wanted for murder, but Biden let him in. He's charged with raping and beating Rachel Morin. Joe Biden's open border, a nightmare for American women.
In the meantime, Trump is trying to set some expectations heading into the debate tonight. He posted on Truth Social about Joe Biden, quote, "The man is a walking, lying machine and a fact-checker's dream. Maybe we should call him Lion Joe in addition to Crooked." In the meantime, pollster Nate Silver thinks this race isn't as much of a toss-up as some of the experts out there think. Take a look at this. He put out his new prediction model, which shows Trump currently at a 65% probability of winning the election in November, while Biden comes in at 33%. However, back out here live, the New York Times is out with a new slate of polls, which shows this is a pretty tight race still. They got Trump at 48% compared to Biden at 44%. We expect to see both Trump and Biden showing up here in Atlanta in the coming hours. Trump, as we all know, really hasn't been preparing for the debate. He hasn't been doing mock debates. He prefers to be out on the campaign trail, meeting with his voters. Biden taking a complete opposite approach. He has been holed up at Camp David with more than a dozen advisors coaching him up on what they'd like him to do tonight. We'll send it back to you.
So Bill, the one thing that I think is interesting is that there was a debate yesterday on are the president's executive orders working at the border? What have you seen?
The numbers have dropped significantly since that executive order went into effect in early June. But the big question, which I assume the Trump campaign is going to hit him with, is why did you wait over 3 years to do this executive order? You could have done it when the crisis first started in 2021 or 2022, but they waited until an election year to do it. Yeah, and remember, he said over and over, "I've done all I can do on the border." Evidently not.
When it became a big issue and they started seeing when we had Lawrence out at the diners and everyone says, yeah, the economy is important, but so is immigration. What's interesting, Bill, in that conservative ad for Donald Trump that you just aired.
Billboard?
Not the billboard, the ad on TV about Rachel Morin and her death. It's interesting how they ended that. A nightmare for American women, because Joe Biden's going after the women. He wants their vote on the issue of abortion. But it's interesting that now conservatives are seeing having illegal migrants that are criminals can affect the lives of these little girls and women.
And that's the point a lot of conservatives and Republicans have been making is, okay, so the numbers are lower now, so what? Everybody already came in, right? You had millions of single adult men from really all around the planet who arrived at our border, were caught and released into the country, and now you get a sense some of those chickens are coming home to roost because we keep seeing week after week after week these horrible high-profile crimes involving either a rape or murder of American young children or women, and it's happening more and more often, guys.
It is indeed. All right, Bill, thank you very much for the live report from down in Georgia. Yep. Meanwhile, at one point they were talking about a fact-checker's dream about, I think that was from Donald Trump, regarding Joe Biden and his lion. The New York Times is deploying 29 fact-checkers tonight for this particular event, including, plus 31 reporters and editors. And they're all going to be working in real time to try to figure out, you know, if what the people are saying is accurate. I think what's interesting, though, is when you think about the two ways that the candidates have prepared. Joe Biden holed up in a cabin up in the Catoctin Mountains at Camp David.
Against his will? This is one. This is not a.
I don't know if he was bound and gagged.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping not. But so he was all by himself, with his advisors, and then you've got Donald Trump out on the stump. Now, here's the thing. Tonight is going to be more like it is at Camp David, because it's going to be a small event. It's not going to be a room full of cheering people who like one or the other. And apparently the mics will be muted when the candidates are not speaking. So with no live audience, it's going to be a little different. And because Democratic strategists are expecting Joe to come out aggressively. And if he uses the same voice that he used at the State of the Union, where he's yelling like this in a small area, we had Mike Huckabee on yesterday, and he said he's going to look deranged. He's going to look like Grandpa out on the lawn saying, "Get off my lawn!" So that's a problem.
Well, that's almost an asset for the former president, because one of his strengths is the crowd. And so because there's not a crowd, he's not going to be able to lean on that and be the entertainer that he is. That's something that people were critical of in the first debate. It's just going to be him and Joe Biden and the moderators. So, again, the people's person is not really what you need for this presidential debate. You're going to have to know the issues. And remember, one of the things that the Biden camp wanted was for the current president to be able to sit down and for him to be able to have notes. Essentially, what they've said in the debate is you can get a note card, but nothing can be written on that. Right. So they can do all the prep they want to. There is no teleprompter and there's no notes. He's going to have to remember everything that happened in rehearsal. And if you judge the current president's memory based on all the other events with a prompter and note cards, it's not very good, guys.
Yeah. Another issue tonight is the economy. I'm sure you'll be talking to the owner of that diner. They'll say eggs are up, bacon's up, everything is up. And there was a letter that was posted on Axios was it Tuesday? And the letter listed 16 top economists that warn of economic dangers if Donald Trump is elected. But what Axios didn't report is that all of these 16 individuals are either big donors to Joe Biden, or they have supported other Democrats, or they have supported him verbally, including, for instance, a Columbia University professor. He donated $1,250 to the Biden Victory Fund in 2020. And between 2004 and 2020, he donated over $90,000 to Democratic candidates. That's just one of the 16, but we have a list of a lot of them.
Right. So you want to talk about the economy? That's what the president, the former president, would like to talk about. And Joe Biden thinks Bidenomics is a great story to tell. We'll finally get it side by side. But it's interesting, too, among the people that think that the new rules are going to work towards Trump's behest is Chuck Todd. He said, you're actually, with these rules, you're trying to pigeonhole Donald Trump, but you're actually making him look more presidential. What's his greatest criticism? He interrupts. He turns it into a brawl. Even when he was winning them, he turns it, goes out, and he barbs. But now you're killing his mic, keeping him in a two-shot. Now he's going to get a chance to collect his thoughts and go. And what President Trump does with a small lead right now, which is getting bigger, is look presidential. That's one of the things he can do. Mark Penn came out last night, and said, look, Trump has more to lose now. He's actually in front, and his Harris poll gives him a 5-point lead. And my last point is this, to keep in mind. You have 2 minutes for the question to be answered, 1 minute for the rebuttal, and then 1 minute for a rebuttal to the rebuttal. But after that, it's the discretion of the moderators if they want to expand on that. That's when the bias that comes out. Not saying they're not both talented. The biasness comes out. And that's what worries the Trump camp. And finally, Brett O'Donnell came out yesterday, who got Bush ready and Mitt Romney ready for their debates. He said the biggest change over the last few years is moderators talk too much. It used to be 10%. 10% used to be the moderators. Right. Now it's at 25%. Sure. We're not there for the moderators, Lawrence.
It's such a good point, Brian. We're here to hear the candidates talk about the issues, wherever they stand on it. Let the American people be the fact checkers.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.